funded by Sean Carter to make sure that Robert Kelly went to jail. Get his lick back. Why is nobody understanding that Dream Hampton was being financed and ran by Sean Carter? They were able to go and get all of these witnesses because he was there with Robert Kelly. How does Jay-Z sit down with Gayle King and she not ask him one question about the intersection between him and Aaliyah and Robert Kelly? This is insane that people keep refusing.
Stop everything, because this story didn't creep onto the internet. It kicked the door down. Beyonce's name just collided with Diddy's in a way nobody had on their bingo card. And suddenly 50 Cent is out here claiming he's holding real proof. Not opinions, not vibes, proof. And the internet reacted like someone unplugged reality for 5 seconds. 1 minute. Beyonce is untouchable, floating in that rare air where scandal goes to die. The next minute, her name is trending next to words that make PR teams sweat through silk suits. And the wildest part isn't the rumor, it's who's pushing it. Because when 50 Cent speaks, it's never accidental, never subtle, and never without intention. This doesn't feel like gossip. It feels like someone hit post before the lawyers woke up. Screenshots. Old clips resurfacing. Cryptic captions being analyzed like ancient scrolls. Fans arguing in real time over whether this is smoke, mirrors, or the beginning of a full-blown industry earthquake. Think less celebrity drama and more music industry crime documentary. Think less headline and more, this was buried for a reason. Because when Beyoncé's name enters controversy, the internet doesn't whisper. It holds its breath, and whatever this is, it's only starting to leak. At first, it didn't even sound real. The kind of rumor that makes people squint at their phone and laugh before the laugh slowly dies. Beyoncé's name doesn't usually show up next to controversy. It floats above it, untouched, unbothered, wrapped in awards and immaculate branding. So when whispers started tying her name to Diddy in a way that felt uncomfortable, the internet froze like it had just seen a ghost blink. This wasn't introduced with sirens or breaking news graphics. It crept in through cryptic posts, resurfaced interviews, and screenshots that looked just official enough to be dangerous. The wording was vague, the timing suspicious, and the confidence alarming. People didn't panic because of what was said. They panicked because of how casually it was being implied. Casual confidence is how rumors get teeth. Then 50 Cent entered the picture. And suddenly nobody was laughing anymore. Because he didn't tease. He didn't hint politely.
He dropped the phrase that changes everything. Real proof.
Not allegations, not opinions, not internet vibes proof. Whether that proof existed, was misunderstood, or was exaggerated didn't matter in that moment. The phrase alone was enough to turn curiosity into chaos. The internet knows 50 Cent's playbook, and that's what made this feel intentional. He doesn't speak unless he wants the room to react. He doesn't poke unless he's prepared for fallout. Fans and critics alike understood immediately that this wasn't random commentary, it was provocation with precision. And when provocation meets a name like Beyoncé's, the reaction is nuclear. Old footage resurfaced instantly because that's how the timeline operates. Interviews from years ago were clipped, slowed down, recontextualized. Industry events once viewed as routine suddenly looked suspicious under a new lens. Moments that meant nothing yesterday were treated like foreshadowing today. The internet doesn't search for truth, it searches for patterns. The sarcasm online came fast and sharp. People joked that this made celebrity feuds look like children's cartoons. Others compared it to uncovering a secret level in a video game nobody thought existed. Humor acted as armor, because confronting the idea directly felt too heavy. Laughing made it digestible, but beneath the jokes was real tension. Beyoncé isn't just another artist, she's a cultural monument. Questioning her proximity to anything controversial feels almost forbidden. Fans reacted defensively, some dismissing everything outright, others demanding context immediately. You don't question a symbol without consequences. What fueled the fire was how unspecific everything remained. No documents presented publicly. No timelines officially laid out. Just implications stacked on implications, spoken with confidence but not clarity. That ambiguity was the oxygen. The less defined the claim, the more room the internet had to fill in blanks, and fill them it did. Threads popped up dissecting industry politics, alliances, and long-standing rumors that had never fully surfaced. People spoke as if they were insiders, connecting dots with the certainty of people who had nothing to lose. The narrative grew legs not because it was proven, but because it was compelling. The first reactions were extreme and immediate. Some fans accused 50 Cent of chasing relevance, claiming this was clout masquerading as commentary. Others insisted he wouldn't speak without something tangible. Neutral observers were dragged into the debate unwillingly, because when a name that big trends, everyone gets pulled in by gravity. Beyoncé's silence became the loudest sound in the room. No denial, no statement. No subtle clarification. And while silence is often strategic, the internet reads it emotionally. Silence doesn't mean wait, it means something's happening. Fair or not, that's the language of virality. Diddy's name, already heavy with public scrutiny, acted like an accelerant. Any association, alleged or historical, suddenly felt radioactive. People weren't evaluating facts, they were reacting to proximity. And proximity in the court of public opinion is enough to convict without trial. What made this phase dangerous was how fast the story escaped its original framing. What started as alleged ties became interpreted as secret alliances, hidden agendas, and industry conspiracies. Each retelling added drama, not accuracy. By the time casual viewers tuned in, the narrative felt established even though nothing had been officially confirmed. The comparisons online became absurd and relentless. People joked that this was bigger than any reality TV scandal, more shocking than surprise divorces or fake retirements. Exaggeration wasn't just entertainment, it was a coping mechanism. When reality feels too strange, the internet leans into parody. Critics tried to slow the conversation, reminding everyone of the difference between allegation and evidence. Their voices were logical, measured, and largely ignored. Logic doesn't trend when speculation feels more exciting. And excitement was in full control. The energy shifted from disbelief to obsession. People weren't asking whether the claims were valid, they were asking what would happen next. Would more information surface? Would someone respond? Would this escalate or vanish? The suspense turned passive viewers into active participants. The most unsettling part was how normal it started to feel. Another day, another explosive rumor involving powerful names. The internet has built a tolerance for scandal, and that tolerance makes each new situation more volatile. When shock wears off, people crave escalation. By the end of this phase, the story had already done irreversible damage to public perception, regardless of outcome. Questions had been planted. Associations had been suggested. Lines had been blurred. Even if everything collapsed tomorrow, the echo would remain. This wasn't confirmation. This was ignition. And once a spark hits dry narrative grass, it doesn't ask permission before spreading. Once the rumor escaped its original bubble, the internet did what it always does when it smells controversy attached to powerful names. It turned the volume to maximum and threw nuance out the window. The conversation stopped being about what was said and became about who was involved. And when Beyoncé, Diddy, and 50 Cent exist in the same sentence, the algorithm doesn't ask questions. It panics, amplifies, and feeds the frenzy. Memes flooded timelines before anyone could even catch their breath. Beyoncé photos were edited into courtroom dramas she never attended. Diddy clips were slowed down, zoomed in, and treated like cryptic messages from a thriller movie. And 50 Cent? He was crowned the internet's self-appointed narrator, half troll, half whistleblower, depending on who you asked. Humor became the coping mechanism because staring straight at the implications felt uncomfortable. Celebrity reactions, or the lack of them, made everything worse. A vague lyric posted by one artist turned into confirmation. A laughing emoji from another became mockery. Silence from industry heavyweights was read as fear, strategy, or guilt, depending on the bias of the reader. At this point, coincidence didn't exist anymore. Everything was intentional in the court of public opinion. The comparisons online went fully unhinged. People said this made past celebrity feuds look like playground arguments. Others joked it felt like uncovering a secret DLC level in the music industry nobody was supposed to unlock. Some compared it to peeling back the curtain on Oz and realizing the wizard was a boardroom. The exaggeration wasn't subtle, but subtlety doesn't trend. Public outrage arrived right on schedule. Think pieces accused the internet of recklessly dragging Beyoncé's name into speculation without evidence. Others fired back, arguing that powerful figures should never be immune from scrutiny. The debate wasn't really about facts anymore. It was about philosophy, power, and who gets questioned in the first place. And once a debate becomes ideological, it never stays calm. Fan bases clashed hard. Beyoncé supporters went into full defense mode, calling the narrative disrespectful, baseless, and borderline sacrilegious. Critics accused those fans of blind loyalty and selective skepticism. Neutral observers tried to stay out of it and failed miserably. Because neutrality doesn't survive when timelines are on fire. The internet's favorite, hobby retroactive meaning went into overdrive. Old award show moments were rewatched with suspicious eyes. Past collaborations were suddenly framed as chess moves instead of business decisions. Even body language was analyzed like it was a true crime documentary. Context didn't matter. Reinterpretation did. What really escalated the chaos was how confident everyone sounded. Threads were written like exposes, even when they contained nothing new. YouTube thumbnails screamed "exposed" without actually exposing anything. The presentation created authority, and authority online doesn't require credentials, just engagement. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's role grew larger with every passing hour. Whether he clarified or not didn't matter. His reputation for stirring controversy made people assume he knew more than he was saying. Some treated him like a truth teller. Others called him a provocateur playing chess with attention. Either way, his involvement guaranteed the story wouldn't die quietly. The outrage evolved into exhaustion for some viewers. Not because answers arrived, but because the noise became relentless. The same arguments repeated with different wording. The same clips recycled with new captions. The same assumptions dressed up as revelations. And yet, people kept watching. Because unresolved stories are addictive. Industry insiders stayed publicly quiet, which only deepened suspicion. When people who usually comment suddenly don't, the internet assumes damage control is happening behind closed doors. Whether that assumption was fair didn't matter. Silence was interpreted as strategy. And strategy implies stakes. The conversation drifted further from the original claim and closer to a broader distrust of the music industry itself. People started questioning power dynamics, gatekeeping, and long-rumored behind-the-scenes alliances. The Beyoncé Diddy angle became symbolic rather than literal. A stand-in for everything people already suspected, but never proved. What made this phase dangerous was how normalized the speculation became. After enough repetition, the shock wore off and was replaced by casual discussion. That's when rumors sink their teeth in. Not when they're explosive, but when they become background noise. By now, the internet wasn't waiting for facts. It was waiting for the next drop. Another post. Another hint. Another reaction. The story had turned episodic, and everyone was convinced the next episode would reveal something bigger. This wasn't escalation toward clarity. It was escalation toward expectation. And expectation is the most volatile fuel the internet has. By the time the noise stopped screaming and started humming, the damage was already done in the quietest way possible. Not the kind of damage that trends for weeks, but the kind that settles into perception and refuses to leave. The internet had moved past asking what was true and into deciding what felt believable. And once belief replaces verification, the story stops needing updates to survive. Beyoncé's public image didn't crack, it recalibrated. That's the part people miss. When a figure that polished gets pulled into controversy, even allegedly, the reaction isn't outrage at first. It's disbelief. Disbelief turns into debate. Debate turns into doubt. And doubt doesn't need proof to linger. It just needs repetition. The absence of a direct response became a Rorschach test for the audience. Some read silence as dignity. Others read it as strategy. A smaller but louder group read it as confirmation by omission. None of those interpretations were grounded in facts, but all of them spread like facts anyway. Silence online doesn't mean pause. It means projection, behind the scenes. The industry vibe shifted, even if nobody admitted it out loud. Collaborations weren't cancelled, but they felt heavier. Public appearances weren't avoided, but they felt more deliberate. When reputations operate at Beyoncé's altitude, even a rumor feels like turbulence. You don't crash. But everyone fastens their seatbelts. Diddy's name carried a different kind of gravity through all of this. Not because anything new was proven, but because proximity alone became the headline. Association turned into implication. Implication turned into speculation. And speculation became its own ecosystem that didn't require input from reality to keep growing. The most telling change happened in how fans talked. Not what they said, but how. Conversations became careful. Defensive tones sharpened. The joy that usually surrounds Beyoncé discourse dimmed slightly, replaced by vigilance. When fans switch from celebration to protection, something has shifted beneath the surface. Critics, meanwhile, didn't celebrate either. There was no victory lap, no told you so moment. Just a cautious satisfaction that the untouchable had been questioned, even if only briefly. That's how narratives evolve, not through takedowns, but through permission. Permission to ask questions that once felt off-limits. What followed was the slow normalization of the controversy. Not because answers arrived, but because attention moved on. The internet doesn't need closure to forget, it needs distraction. Another headline surfaced. Another scandal queued up. The timeline refreshed. And suddenly this story became something people referenced instead of something they argued about. But reference points matter. Once something becomes shorthand, it never fully disappears. Beyoncé's name now existed in one more context than it did before. Not a dominant one. Not a defining one. Just an added layer. And layers accumulate quietly. 50 Cent's role settled into its usual paradox. To some, he looked reckless. To others, calculated. To everyone, effective. Whether he presented anything concrete or not, he succeeded in one undeniable way. He forced a conversation that couldn't be unspoken. And in the attention economy, forcing conversation is power. The internet, of course, rewrote the moment almost immediately. Threads claimed the story was exaggerated. Others insisted it was suppressed. Both sides spoke with absolute certainty, which is the internet's favorite tone. Nobody wanted to admit they didn't know. Uncertainty doesn't perform well. Over time, the outrage cooled into curiosity, and curiosity faded into memory. But memory is dangerous. Memory doesn't store nuance, it stores impressions. And impressions don't care about disclaimers or allegedly. They remember vibes, not footnotes. The larger consequence wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about myth. Beyoncé has long existed beyond celebrity, closer to iconography. Icons aren't supposed to be questioned. They're supposed to be revered. This moment didn't dethrone her, but it reminded the public that icons are still human narratives. Not marble statues. Industry conversations shifted subtly. Not publicly, not dramatically, but internally. Power dynamics were reconsidered. Alliances were reassessed. People remembered how quickly the narrative changed and how little it took to spark it. That awareness doesn't fade easily. For audiences, the story left an aftertaste of unease. Not because they believed something terrible had happened, but because they saw how fast belief itself could be manufactured. One phrase, one implication, one confident voice. That's all it took to bend perception, and that's the real aftermath. Not canceled careers, not legal consequences, but the exposure of how fragile reputations are, even at the highest level. How easily the internet can draft a story and dare reality to keep up. Nothing officially ended here.
Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
Beyonce, it was so monumental. We fucking adore you. You are our light.
Beyonce and I started out around the same time.
No revelations dropped. No apologies issued. No confirmations delivered. The story simply stopped being loud. And quiet endings are the most unsettling, because they don't feel resolved. They feel postponed. This chapter didn't answer questions. It created new ones and left them hanging. And in an industry built on image, mystery is never harmless. Because once the idea exists, it doesn't need proof to survive. It just needs memory. And if you're still here, congratulations, you didn't just watch a story. You watched the internet test its own limits. Because this wasn't about receipts getting dropped on a table. This was about implication, power, and how fast a whisper turns into a wildfire when famous names collide. One phrase, one post, one confident voice. And suddenly everybody's an expert with a verdict. Now do what you do best. Smash that like button like it just tried to gaslight your timeline. Drop a comment and tell me where you land. Was this smoke with no fire, a warning shot, or the beginning of something nobody wants to talk about yet? Don't be polite in the comments, be honest. That's where the real story always lives. If you're watching and not subscribed, that's like pulling up to the scene and pretending you didn't see anything. Fix that. Hit subscribe like clarity just became rare and you want updates when the next shoe drops. Turn on notifications because these stories don't arrive with press releases, they leak. They slip, and they explode without warning, remember. The internet never waits for facts. Celebrities never rush to explain. And silence is always louder than denial. And when the next headline hits and everyone's acting shocked, just know you were already here when the pattern showed itself. Stay sharp. Stay skeptical. Stay entertained. Because around here, we don't chase rumors, we break them down. We don't worship narratives, we question them. And when the truth finally surfaces, if it ever does, you'll remember exactly where you heard the tension crack first.